Welcome to Hard Time Sports. I'm Matthew Schneider. Today's topic, NHL Playoffs First Round 2017. Well, the regular season just ended and playoffs are now here for the NHL Playoffs. So, 14 teams are already eliminated. 16 teams are vying to raise Lord Stanley Cup, and we will know that in June. So let's start with the first round matchups for the NHL playoffs. Let's start off in the Eastern Conference. You have the New York Rangers versus the Montreal Canadiens. I don't know much about either one of these teams, but from what I've heard from a lot of people, I think that most people are thinking that the Canadiens are going to beat the Rangers because the Rangers really only have one good player, and that's their goalie, and he's hurt. Well, I'm going to take a risk, and I'm going to go Rangers in 7 games to beat the Canadiens. Now, let's go to the second matchup in the Eastern Conference. You have the Boston Bruins versus the Ottawa Senators. I think the Boston Bruins will beat the Ottawa Senators in 6 games. Let's go to the next game series in the Eastern Conference of the NHL. You have the Columbus Blue Jackets and the defending Stanley Cup champions, the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'm going to go Penguins in 7, led by Sidney Crosby, Sid the Kid. Will beat the Columbus Blue Jackets in 7 games. Let's go to the last series in the Eastern Conference in the first round. You have the President's Cup winning Washington Capitals versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think Washington has too much for Toronto, and I'm going to take the Washington Capitals in the shortest series in the Eastern Conference of the first round in 5 games. Toronto will win Game 3 at home, and then will lose in 5. That is the Eastern Conference picks. Let's do a recap. Raiders in 7 over Montreal. Bruins in 6 over Ottawa. Pittsburgh in 7 over Columbus. And Washington in 5 over Toronto. Now, let's go to the Western Conference. You have the Chicago Blackhawks will face the Nashville Predators. I'm going to take the Chicago Blackhawks in 6 games to beat the Predators. More experience. They've won 3 cups in the last 7 years. I think the Chicago Blackhawks will beat the Nashville Predators in 6 games. Let's go to the next series. You have the Calgary Flames versus the Anaheim Ducks. I'm going to take Anaheim in 6 games. Been there, done that. Been to the playoffs more than Calgary has in the last 10 years. So I'm going to take Anaheim in 6. Now let's go to the next series. You have the St. Louis Blues versus the Minnesota Wild. If you'd asked me this 2 months ago, I would have taken the Minnesota Wild to probably win this series. But the last couple months, they have faded and they have basically playing terrible hockey, and the Blues have probably played the best hockey of any team in the NHL, even though they played against weaker competition to get to the playoffs. I still think that the St. Louis Blues are going to win Game 7 in Minnesota to win their first round series. I'm going to go Blues in 7 over the Minnesota Wild. Now, let's go to the next series. You have the San Jose Sharks versus the Edmonton Oilers. The defending Western Conference champions, the San Jose Sharks, against, in my opinion, the upstarts, the Edmonton Oilers, led by young stud Connor McDavid. I'm going to go San Jose in 6 games because of the experience. So, here's my recap for the Western Conference. Chicago Blackhawks over the Nashville Predators in 6 games. Anaheim Ducks over the Calgary Flames in 6 games. St. Louis Blues over the Minnesota Wild in 7 games. And the San Jose Sharks over the Edmonton Oilers in 6 games. That wraps up the first round picks from Matthew Schneider's picks for the NHL's first round of the playoffs of 2017. I hope you enjoyed today's telecast. Later, enjoy the ball!